here today because your mother is very worried about you.
He keeps on talking about a centipede with 12 people. What does that mean?
The centipede can be considered a phallic symbol. Maybe he's connecting the pain that a centipede inflicts with the psychological and sexual abuse inflicted on him by his father.
Human Centipede 2 is a horror movie that really pushes the limits. The main character, Martin, is the epitome of other. His portrayal speaks volumes for how society views others, and more importantly, how we see others in horror films. We propose that Martin's character development throughout the film endures 3 phases. Phase 1, victimization. Phase 2, rise. Phase 3, fall. Upon the first time we see Martin make his appearance in the film, his victimization becomes apparent based on the way he looks. Although he is a white male, he is short, obese, balding, and he wears glasses. As we keep watching the movie, we find out that he also uses an inhaler and is completely nonverbal throughout the entire film. The more the audience finds out about him, the more childlike he seems as well. In one scene, he even defecates in his own bed, a clear indication that he has a lack of self-control, much like a baby. Not only is he brought down to the level of a child, he is also emasculated time and time again. There are 3 main characters who victimize Martin throughout the movie: his mother, therapist, and father, but it's not limited to just them. Martin still lives with his mother, and we constantly see her abusing him. She yells at him and tells him to be a man. There is even a scene where we see the mother stabbing at Martin's bed in an attempt to kill him with a kitchen knife. Although Martin is not in the bed, we see how powerful his mother really is. This is especially emphasized with the phallic thrusting of the knife. This scene shows that Martin's father is not the only parent capable of sexually assaulting him. The therapist comes over to Martin's apartment regularly for therapy sessions, which the mother is always present for. When we think that someone might actually be there to help and comfort Martin, we find out that he places blame on Martin for the father leaving as well. He also victimizes Martin sexually. We see the therapist inappropriately touch his leg, and there's even male gaze coming from the therapist. As the audience, we see through the eyes of the therapist as he scans Martin's backside. The comparison of the therapist's appearance to Martin's appearance is very emasculating to Martin. In a stereotypical fashion, the therapist looks a lot like Freud. He has a huge beard and other manly features, which is a stark contrast to Martin and his childlike features. As the movie progresses, Martin begins to overcome his victimization, starting with taking back control over his life. One of the first things he does to overcome his role as a victim is kill his own mother. In one scene, his mother discovers his Human Centipede book and tears it apart. That book was one of Martin's most prized possessions, and in a moment, he snaps and takes revenge on his mother. He first has his pet centipede bite her in the face, which inflicts serious amounts of pain, and then he bashes her head in with a crowbar several times. This scene is extremely graphic, and it is a very personal killing. Martin strikes her so much it causes a hole in her skull before her death. Next, Martin sets up his dead mother's body in a chair in the kitchen as a trap for the upstairs neighbor. He seems proud of his accomplishment and wants to show it off. As soon as the neighbor comes into the kitchen, he sees the mother's dead body and is completely shocked. Martin then shoots him in the leg and takes him as one of the pieces for his human centipede. The next person Martin decides to take his revenge out on is his therapist. Martin finds his therapist in a car with a prostitute and one of the therapist's friends. Martin shoots and kills the therapist's friend and injures the prostitute. When the therapist realizes the shooter is Martin, he gets out of the car to try and reason with him. One of the first things you noticed about the therapist is that he has not yet buckled up his pants when he gets out of the car, and he doesn't do so until after Martin looks at him. Martin begins to cry as the therapist says, "This is wrong, Martin. What would your father think?" However, before he can finish his sentence, Martin shoots him right in the crotch, and while he's on the floor bleeding and in pain, Martin shoots him in the head and kills him. Another way Martin is able to overcome his victimization is by finally getting the girl he's been after. Throughout the film, Martin makes several efforts to get a hold of an actress by the name of Ashlyn, who had starred in the original Human Centipede. He gains her trust with promises of her being the star of a new Quentin Tarantino film. She comes with him to the location. However, Martin's real plans involve Ashlyn becoming the final piece to his Human Centipede. There is a brief moment of elation for Martin when he realizes he has accomplished his goal of getting all 12 people for his Human Centipede. When Martin successfully puts his centipede together, we see Martin for the second time engaging in a sexual act. This time, however, he is raping the last girl in the segment of the centipede. This is a display of Martin taking back his sexual life after being sexually abused as a child by his own father. It also represents him taking power over his creation, the 12-segment Human Centipede. The prostitute plays an important role in his fall from reaching masculinity. Martin is able to easily incapacitate the large man and his therapist, but the prostitute escapes and runs for her life. After being wounded by a gunshot, she sits seemingly helpless on a staircase and pleads for escape. She tells Martin in a sexual way, "I'll do anything," insinuating that she would do sexual favors if he allows her to escape. After he so foolishly falls for this, she sprays him in the face with pepper spray. She is still captured, but this scene shows that the women in the film are perhaps more powerful than the other. After Martin has gathered all of his victims, we see that he does not discriminate between men and women. He has no bias between men and women, possibly because he's trapped in a state between the two genders. However, he does make sure the very first person in the centipede is a woman, an actress from the first film. When the people in the centipede die during assembly, he begins to cry, another instance in which Martin displays femininity. Up until her death, his mother was the person who kept Martin in his place. Women again are the ones to put him back in his place. Throughout the movie, there is only one person who escapes Martin's torture, a pregnant woman. She is suspected to be dead but is awakened by labor pains. She is able to escape the warehouse and obtain a car. To show the severance of the bond between mother and child that Martin activated by killing his mother, she sacrifices her newborn in order to save her own life. This woman is no mother bear, but a woman with a strong will to survive. The fact that a pregnant woman, the most vulnerable of women, was able to escape shows Martin's weakness and further emasculates him. This takes back much of the progress we saw him make previously. In the original Human Centipede movie, the actress does not survive, showing how weak she is. She also emphasizes the difference between Martin and the surgeon from the first film, who was a respected, successful, and fully functioning man. In both films, the actress is portrayed as ditzy and ignorant. In this film, she willingly accepts a role in a film she thinks is directed by Quentin Tarantino, but she has no background information and gets into a small car with a strange, non-verbal man, Martin. In fact, some may say her idiotic actions caused her to deserve the punishment because she should have known better. After she is captured, she is very defiant. She talks back to Martin, screams for help, even throws a bowl of food. She does not just endure the torture without a fight. Even though Martin extracts her tongue to shut her up, she exacts her revenge on him. Once his whole plan falls through, Martin begins killing the segments with the unlikely gun. This may represent a distance between Martin and his beloved centipede. Since the project failed, he no longer wishes to be close with his creation by using a more intimate weapon. He then stands at the front of the centipede. As he touches the actress's face, she uses her fist to hit him between the legs. Even though he had not had any of the perks of being a male, he still had one weakness of being male at this instance. To put the final nail in the emasculating coffin, the actress inserts his pet centipede into his anus. This shows that many of the women in the film are strong enough to defeat Martin, while no man could lift a finger to defy him, even at his strongest moments. He is also overpowered by three distinct types of women from different walks of life: a sexually liberated woman, the prostitute, a woman with a family, the pregnant woman, and a woman with success, the actress. Overall, this film breaks many barriers of horror film. Of course, it pushes the limits of gore and shock value, but it also digs into how women are portrayed in film. Men and women are treated fairly equally as victims of Martin. He does not prefer one sex or the other. The killer may be a white male, but not in a traditional sense whatsoever. There is no one final girl, but different women who defeat Martin and break his dream of having a 12-person human centipede.